Hey gang, I'm Mr. Phil, and today I'm going to answer one of your questions. This question came through over Instagram by one of my followers, and it reads, is there a schedule I should follow for regular haircuts? Of course, I think there is definitely a schedule for regular haircuts. But before we talk about that, I want to share with you the system I use to determine some facts about your haircut and how to schedule it. There are three principles that I like to use when it comes down to haircuts, and number one is that a haircut is good to establish a style. Number two, a haircut's good to maintain or modify that style. And number three, a haircut is good to repair your hair or remove damage. And while those don't really sound like pieces of scheduling, they help determine a lot about me knowing when it is time to cut your hair. Let me explain. Number one, a haircut is good to establish a style. So if you come in and you're looking to do something different or new with your hair, but not really sure what, this is a good time to look at some photos, talk about your lifestyle, talk about the things that you do and do not like about your current hairstyle, and we can go from there to determine what would be a really good and functional but stylish approach for your next haircut. And so then let's say that at haircut number two, you like what we did and you want to keep it the same. That's where principle number two comes in, that a haircut is a really great way to maintain your new style. And then somewhere along the line, if you want to change something, for instance with fades, you might want to take the fade up a little higher, or you might want to take it a little tighter to the scalp. Or for long layers, you might want a different accent in the front. You might want to go from a straight fringe to a sweep. Those are things that we can modify without changing the overall length or shape of your haircut. Now number three is a little more difficult because that starts to talk about damaged hair. And what is damaged hair? Well, we know that we can talk about split ends, we could talk about color damage, we could talk about chemical processing damage, but we also could talk about thermal damage. So flat iron was too hot, the curling iron was too hot, is left on the irons too long and frayed the ends. Breakage, heat breakage. And those are sometimes places where people will come to me and have me start with their haircut and say, if you can just cut out the damage first, and then we'll see what haircut we can do after that, that's important to me. And so talking about damage, the most common one being split ends or damaged ends. And a lot of the times our length to cut is determined by how much damage has been done to the hair. And without getting into the scientific and really boring stuff, let's just say this, that the hair closest to the scalp is the healthiest because the nutrients and natural oils from the scalp can reach that hair, making that the healthiest, strongest, and easiest to maintain hair on your head. And as the hair grows further away from the scalp, it runs a risk of not being able to receive those nutrients. So it dries out, it breaks, it splits, and it recoils. So even though you might have long hair down past the shoulders, some days it might actually look like it's gotten shorter. That's because the split or damaged ends, instead of being long, healthy strands of hair, they split and break and contract. So your long hair now looks a bit shorter. So we would determine how much length is needed to cut out the damage and begin there. And from that, we can determine and establish a new haircut for you. So for instance, you see that my hair is really cropped tightly, almost at scalp level. And if I were to go to get my haircut right now, it would be a number 0 guard on the clipper blade and take that all over and then just detail sideburns, ear, and neckline. And that we can do every 2 weeks to keep it low and maintained. Now for someone that wears their hair in like a pompadour or a slick back or a comb over or some of the shapes that have a lot of length on top and even onto the sides and taper down to the sideburns and neck. Maybe their hair, if you pull it up from the scalp, it would be as long as 4 fingers on the scalp. In a situation like that, we're going to probably look at 4 weeks between full haircuts. But usually at week number 2, over the ears and the sideburns and the neck become a little fuzzy and a little straggly. So at week 2, you might come in and have me do a cleanup of just trimming here over the ears and then tapering and cleaning up the neckline. So once we get into hair that's longer than ear length or chin, or now shoulder or lower than shoulder, we're talking about hair that is certainly more prone to that damage, as we mentioned before. So split ends become the first issue of damage that might need to be removed. So that brings us to principle number 3, that sometimes you come in first not to establish a new style, but to remove damage. And so on your first haircut, I would determine again length to cut based on how much damage. So if you want to keep the length and you only show this much damage on the split ends, your haircut could stay very long. Now if it's been a long time since you've had the damage removed and your length to cut of split or damaged ends is this much, well, that's going to change the overall style of your hair, because this much is damaged hair and needs to be removed. Whether it's layered or if it's a one length or whatever style it might be with that longer hair, then I might not see you for 6 to 8 weeks just to give you a trim of any split ends down the road. So whether you're doing a very short, close crop hair like mine or long layers down to the middle of your back, there is a haircut schedule for you. And in between your haircuts or trims, it's also good to start adding in maybe a visit for hair health treatments. And what does that take on? What that takes on is regular appointments where we can start rebuilding hair to prevent further damage. We can condition it so that way it's softer, fuller, and easier to style. So in wrapping up, the schedule of 2 weeks on very tight haircuts, fades, tight tapers, those things, or 4 weeks on length on top, pompadours, comb overs, business cuts, executive contours, slick backs with a cleanup in 2 weeks, or long hair with a 6 to 8 week split end trim. I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions, all of my contact information is at the end of this video. Feel free to contact me and have me answer one of your questions in upcoming videos. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. This is Mr. Phil signing off.